My name is Mackenzie Tischhauser. I am interviewing Jack Lozier. It is November 26th, 2015, and we are interviewing in Marion, Wisconsin. So, Jack, when and where were you born?
I was born in Simcoe, Wisconsin, October 24, 31.
Okay, and who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad was Earl Lozier, and his occupation, he worked for the four-wheel drive.
And your mom?
And my mom was Elsie, and she worked in a shipyard.
And did you have any siblings?
Did I have any siblings?
Yes.
One brother,
One brother, and what was his name?
Eugene.
Eugene. And did he serve in the military?
No,
No. And what were you doing before you entered the service?
I was worked in New London
Mm-hmm.
in a plywood factory.
Very nice.
I was 17 years old.
Causing trouble?
Much trouble. Yeah.
What branch of the military did you serve in?
I served in the United States Army.
And did you enlist or were you drafted?
I belonged to the National Guard first, and I was drafted out of the National Guard into the regular Army.
Okay. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
What happened?
Yeah.
Well, I took my basic training in Indiana, Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and that's where I left. When I left there, I went to Korea. I volunteered.
Do you have any fun stories of training camp? Did you like it? Was it fun?
Well, it wasn't fun. No, it wasn't fun. But it was. They decided that They would have liked me to make what they call cadre, which would be training new recruits, and I did not like that, and I volunteered to go overseas.
Very nice. Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
I don't recall my instructors, but I do recall our sergeant who trained us, and he was a Korean veteran, and he had been wounded, and but he was a nice guy, tough too.
Did you receive any specialized training while you were there?
Not really.
No.
No, just a basic training there. But I did when I belonged to the National Guard. I was actually Don't forget the game. Take care. And I was trained. It was a 4.2 mortar.
Ooh. How did you adapt to military life?
Good.
Did you like the food?
Yes, I did. I ate everything he gave me. My dad done all the cooking at home, and there was nothing but an improvement.
How was the sleeping arrangements while you were in the military?
Well, I went from basic training. I went to Korea, and I slept in a tent for 16 and a half months.
Oh, comfortable.
Yeah. Well, see, there was a nine-man tent,
Oh,
but I slept in pup tents too. The two-man to it.
very nice. Close corners.
Yeah, it was cozy.
Okay, so when you served in Korea, what are some memories that you have of the experience in Korea?
Well, I would say this: the experience that I had, I probably wouldn't train for anything. Trade, not train. Trade for anything, but I wouldn't want to go back.
No, why not?
Well, actually, Korea is the same type of weather that's here. Only thing is, we have so many more advantages here than they have.
If you were on the front, were you on the front lines when you were over there?
I wasn't on the front. I was stationed above the 38th parallel.
What were your duties?
I was in charge of a 105 recoilless rifle, which is mounted on a Jeep, and that was my baby. I had a driver, and him and I were kind of like two peas in a pod.
Very nice. What was his name?
I don't remember. I don't.
Two peas in a pod, but you don't remember his name?
Are you sure you was a guy? Yeah.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, I had a lot of good friends. Yeah.
Like who?
My whole platoon was of friends. You know, I mean, I can't tell you just how many were in there, but this tent that I had, they all became very good friends. You know.
Do you remember any of their names?
Nope.
Did you have any friends over there that you can remember their names?
Well, I'll tell you the honest truth. I actually had a lot of friends there. My driver for my Jeep, you know, he was a good friend, and he was just a little guy, and but as far as remembering, I could give you some names, but most of the people that I had for friends there came out of New York.
Oh, fancy. Did you stay in touch with any friends when you came back home?
I did not.
No.
No. You know, I regret that too.
What did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
We used to have ball games. You know, or we'd play where we could find a level spot. You know, there was a lot of rice paddies there, so but we would play softball and stuff like that.
That's fun. Did you win any games?
No, we didn't play against anybody. More or less, just played. You know, I mean.
Very nice. Let's see. Where were you when the war ended?
I was when it ended. I was my job was they would fly us up on a hill with the helicopters and fly us up there with what they call a 75 recoilless rifle, which could be carried on your shoulder. And me and another sergeant, and we would observe the enemy. They'd be quite a ways away, but we could observe them, and we had ground-to-air contact with the Air Force. So the Air Force would call us, and they would say, "Mark the target." So then we would fire white phosphor rounds in that vicinity, and then they'd come out and strafe them.
Oh my.
Or use white phosphor rounds. Actually napalm, and that burns. But that's where I was when it was over.
How did you return home?
I returned on a ship, a troop ship. They didn't fly you over there then.
No.
You went on a ship. I was on a General Meigs, and it took 14 days going and 15 days coming back.
Did you like being on the ship?
Well, I didn't mind it. When I went over, we hit a storm, and I luckily had the top bunk. We were so far down in the bottom of that ship that the only thing below us was what they call a screw that run the propeller, and but people got real sick, but I never got vomited on, like a lot of them did, and they would the steps going up they had all was slippery, and you'd get up on deck, and they'd chase you up there. You had to go no matter what. You had to go up there, and then the galley from the exhaust from the kitchen would come out and vent it out there, and you'd smell that. You'd burp. But I never vomited. But I got, I didn't feel that great, and a lot of them got real sick.
On the way there or the way back or both?
That was on the way there. On the way back, it was a lot smoother.
Did any friends or family come to visit you once you got back? Or were they there when you returned?
No, I had no one. The only thing that met us when I got back, see, I got into Seattle, Washington.
Oh.
And was a Red Cross. And they gave us coffee and a donut. That was our greeting.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
Real easy. I didn't do anything. Just drank. No. I went back to work, and I disliked it with no end because it was bad. So a friend of mine that went in the service with me, he stayed in the States, and we took a test from DeVry Institute in Chicago, and passed the test, and that's where we went to school.
Oh.
And we were there 2 years. And my friend, he went to work for Bell Telephone, and I went to work just here, in Clintonville. So
What did you do then?
repaired TVs for 40-some years.
Very nice.
Yes.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
Yes.
What
I
do you-
belong to the American Legion,
What do you...
Post 63 in Clintonville.
Okay. And what have you done since separating from the military, besides fixing televisions?
What have I done since? Well, actually, I worked for Shutt Industries in Clintonville part time, and that's about it. I worked a couple of places part times actually, but actually anything that I had, like my gator or my four-wheeler or my snowmobile, I earned that after I was 70.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have any favorite stories from serving in the war while you were over there? Do you have any favorite stories you'd like to tell?
Well, one of the things that never did leave my mind, which a lot of it did, but was I was assigned with a group to how would I say that? To fit, I went to an orphanage, and these little ones were all standing on a porch, outdoor porch, with their bare feet, not their bare feet, but they had socks on, but waiting for their shoes, and that was quite the experience.
What did you do? Did you get to hang out with them?
We fit them, found shoes to fit them,
Nice.
and they were all real little, and it was a tearjerker for me.
Did you and your fellow veterans? Did you guys do anything while you were over there, like like during the night and stuff? Did you hang out anywhere?
Oh yeah, we had some places to go after we were, after the war.
Mm-hmm.
We had an NCO club,
Mm-hmm.
non-commissioned officers club, and we used to go there once in a while. And actually, there wasn't that much to do. I mean, we made our own fun. Really, is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Do you have anything to say about Marilyn Monroe?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Marilyn Monroe. They brought Marilyn in,
Mm-hmm.
and she was riding on a tank,
Oh.
and we had to. Everybody was required to go to that show, so they marched us. I don't know how far to get there, and it was cold,
Mm-hmm.
and Marilyn caught pneumonia
No.
after that. But I mean, as far as getting close to her or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
we never couldn't get too close because there was quite a few people, and but that I remember now, with a little help.
Oh, what about boxing?
Boxing, well, that did quite a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was all done afterwards too, and what else did we do?
Were you a good boxer?
I thought so until my dad told me. My dad always said, one of his things was, he said, I don't care how good you are, there's always somebody better. And they matched me with a guy like that. He turned out to be semi-pro.
Oh my.
Yeah. But, yeah, I found out when we started on that guy, he knew what he was doing.
Do you have any stories that you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, I can shorten that up a little bit. But I went up, crawled up these rice paddies, and I went into the latrine, and which was in a tent, and I had heard this shot, but I didn't know if it was shot at me or what it was. Anyway, I saw the blood on the ground, and I went and walked over there, and here this fella had been sitting on there, and he put his M1 in his mouth and pulled the trigger, and blew his top of his head off.
Oh my.
And anyway, come to find out what his problem was, he got a Dear John letter from his girlfriend, and he couldn't handle it, and he committed suicide.
Oh my.
Because that was the first time I ever got in on a military investigation or something like that, because I was a witness, So, and I don't remember just how that turned out. They didn't have me very long or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of, I don't know, didn't bother me too bad.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wouldn't be for him, I forgot all about it. But that's 40 some years ago. I got to come up with some things that happened. We went to the only places that the first time I went on R&R, rest and recuperation, that is. I went to Tokyo, and I had saved my money. My salary was like $140 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and I had saved a couple of months, and by Wednesday I was broke. They take you to camp over there. You don't know really where you're going, so you jump in a taxi and tell them you want to go such and such a place, and they drive you around about 4 times longer than that you should. And when you stop, you look across the street, and there's where you wanted to go. So, but the second time I went to Yokohama,
Oh.
and I was a lot smarter, and I had enough money, you know. They didn't take me to camp because you get educated,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's I had money left over then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I loaned some to a guy, and he didn't know me from Adam or anything. Got to see him, but he did pay me back.
Nice.
Yeah, he really did. And but the I actually went over there on a Globemaster. I forget how many were. There was hundreds of us on there, and and when like I say, the first time I was broke by Wednesday, and I got a jumped on a DC-3, and they flew us back, you know, to so we got back there. I didn't have any money anyway, and it was quite an experience. We flew over when we came into Tokyo. Mount Fujiyama was right below us with its white cap, snow capped mountain. It was just beautiful. And I didn't have a camera or anything. I wasn't a camera bug, but I bought that camera when we left San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I always remember going under the bridge, and then Alcatraz was right there. You know, so you could see that real plain. We went between there and the mainland. Yeah, that was a experience too. Never been near it since. But
What about the Chow story?
well, that was the one I said with the Chow card.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't have his card,
Yeah.
and he says, "Just watch this." He said, you know, and Chow, the mess sergeant said, "Where's your card?" And he says, "Do you know who I am?" And it was Sarge says, took him about 3 seconds, and he says, "I don't care who you are." And he booted him right out the door. And so it was kind of funny, you know. It was kind of funny on this guy's part too, saying that, you know. He says, "Do you know who I am?" You know, like he was really important.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't quite as important as he thought.
What about the how big were the rats wherever you were?
The what?
The rats.
Oh, they were big. They ate the cat. See,
The rats ate the cats?
no, the Koreans
Oh.
ate the cats and dogs, and we were all standing in a formation inspection, and we were by the mess hall.
Uh-huh.
And I looked. We were all standing at attention, and I looked, and here this rat run across all these stones, and he was as big as a cat. Man, that was a huge rat, you know. But when we left, see, some of the guys had dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and I'm a dog lover, and anyway, when we were waiting for our ship to come to take us back to the States,
Mm-hmm.
that was in '53. Then they collected these dogs and put them in a doorsnaff, and they took them to the city, and you know, not knowing exactly what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and the Koreans had half these dogs hung up already, skinned out. That was terrible.
Sad.
There was some mad guys, I can tell you that. You know that they did that, but that's what they ate.
That's so sad.
Yeah,
Any other stories you'd like to share?
Well, I should have Tom here. I told him. Can't think of. There's a lot of things that were first for me. we well, that isn't really interesting, but when we came into Seattle, Washington, well, when we flew out of there, we hit a storm when we were coming home, or bad weather, and we landed in Kansas City, Kansas, at the airport, and it was in the middle of the night, and we got out and we went into the airport, into they had a restaurant in there. We all went in there, and there was a bunch of young fellas in there, young people. Well, they were much younger than us at the time, but I mean they were in there, and the guy that was with me, he was actually a state trooper in Minnesota. That was his job, and he was a pretty good sized fella. And one of these guys, young guys in the booth, said, "Let's ask these scum where they're from." Well, he won't do that again, because he got yanked out of that booth. Right, it stood him right up, and if there just happened to be a deputy sheriff that was there having coffee. Yeah, otherwise we'd have cleaned that place out. That's no fact. That's terrible to say that. Something like that. And but he reached out at that guy. That guy got real short in a hurry. Okay. Yeah, that was another thing that. Yeah, and let's see, where the heck did I come in? I don't even remember where we landed. It wasn't close. I think we had to take the train back from Milwaukee, something like that. Yeah, that was interesting too. Then the gal from Simcoe, Stell Lohman, she came and got me, and because I had no other ride, home. She's the one that learned me how to play cribbage. She run the tavern there. Of course, I didn't go in.
Of course not.
No, and other than that, I don't know what else you got. I can tell you about anything.
Any letters?
Yes, I had a couple of. My dad wrote to me at least once a week. That's no kidding.
Nice.
Yeah. Whereas, what do you do? What do you tell somebody every week? But he was very good at letting me know what was going on and stuff. And I had a couple of gals that I knew in Manawa that wrote to me. And you don't have that much to talk about her, and as far as relation was concerned, but Dad was real good to me, and well, there was that I can't think of. I know I got the one of the gals from Manawa. She was a Storm. Her last name was Storms. They owned half of Manawa, and she sent me things, something I could use, I don't even remember what it all was, but I think I got some of that. But she's dead now too. She was an only child, and really nice. You've heard of that place in Manawa, haven't you? Storm and Jensen, or Storm, they got the factory as you're coming into Manawa. Big factory there on the right.
I've never seen
You're not familiar with Manawa, probably, huh?
No.
You should try to get away more often.
Should try. Do you have any life lessons that you learned from the military service?
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about the military service. I feel that anybody graduating from high school, it should make it mandatory that they go through basic training. That's as far as they'd have to go. But they would they'd learn to take orders, they'd learn to respect themselves, and they'd learn to respect other people. It would do them a lot of good, believe me.
That's good advice.
That's the way I feel about it.
How did the wartime experience affect your life?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you'd say it made a man on me, but Chinchon, they call it, and that's above the 38th parallel. That's where no man's land is, and that's where I was most of the time. That's actually right up next to North Korea.
Oh,
So if you look, that's right
right up there.
right up there. See, there's a space in between there, you know, where the North and South Koreans, you know, and that's where I was. They call it no man's land. So.
Oh, very interesting. Well, thank you very much for
I
interviewing
can tell you
with
this
me.
much too, if
Oh,
you
yes.
want. Well, I think of it,
Yeah, go ahead.
and there's like a funeral, for instance. Let's say they have a funeral, and they'll get snockered up, you know, and they carry the casket on their shoulders, and they march, and depending on their status determines how high up they're buried on these patties.
Oh.
And if there's a woman in there, the flowers on it will be pink.
Oh.
And if there is a man, then they're blue, I think it was. But they just give her, you know. They I can tell you, they're kind of comical, you know. They plant them depending on their status, how high up in the mountains. It's all mountains there, you know. It's just one. Like when I first got there, the little ones, you know, they come out of the woodwork, you know, begging for something to eat or begging you to give them something, you know. So you feel real sorry for them and all this. And about time you leave there, a year and a half later, you could kick them in the rear end. You know, they're a nuisance. And anyway, like in the wintertime, they'll have a trench dug underneath their hut, you know, and they build a fire out here, and they tunnel that heat down that trench into their place to keep it warm, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a hardship there too, you know. I could tell you, I get going now and I keep thinking of something, but I was in the compound, they call it, where before you get assigned to a unit, and this thing is fenced in. You're not supposed to. You got to stay in there, and you're not supposed to. They can grow an apple as big as your head per near because they use human waste to do it.
Yeah.
And their toilets are built right on the line. A fence right here is, you got this side the soldiers can use, and this side they can. And they'll clean these out, and they call them honey wagons. And they take this out, these waste out, and they dig a hole in the ground, like they call them 6x6s out, and they store this in there. So when they need it, it's there. See, and it's one time this guy, they're MPs, you know, military police, they're chasing this guy across this flat. He fell in there, and they're leading him back, and they're from here to the wall on each side of him. You know, Yeah, that was a good one.
Ew.
The guy could have drowned.
You in human ways. Gross.
Honey wagons, they call them, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for letting me interview you, Grandpa.
Well, you're certainly welcome. I can't. It's kind of hard for me to think of what everything, but there's a lot more.
You did a good job.
Yeah. Okay.